Okay. I'm gonna put my apron on so I don't get paint all over my clothes. Typically, I wear the same clothes when I come in my studio, so I don't have to worry about it because they already have paint on them. But today I decided not to change my clothes because I'm going to wear my cute little dog shirt. Okay, so like I said, welcome back. You guys, if you are new to my channel, please subscribe. Thank you very much for subscribing. If you've already subscribed, thank you. I'm so glad that you're here, and I want to do a couple of updates for you. First of all, I am back. Thank you for being patient and for watching and liking and commenting on the shorts that I've been posting instead of my full-length videos. Thank you so much for that. I want to share a couple of updates. First of all, I am going to be posting my full-length videos once a week, and that will happen on Sunday. So I don't know if you want to put it on your calendar or hit the bell, subscribe and hit the bell, whatever you want to do so that you will be able to be informed when my videos post every Sunday so you can watch them if that is something that you'd like to do. And I'm going to be working more on my a little bit better videography, if that's possible, because I'm not a professional. But I'm going to be trying to do a little bit better with, especially with close-ups, because a lot of you have requested that, and also sharing the colors and information and stuff like that, my techniques. Today what I'm using is my Abstract Stylism Mix, and I will be using that on a foundation layer of the PPG Multi-Pro, just white house paint, because it's real stretchy. And when I do the composition and then I spin it out, it stretches real nicely. So what I'm going to try to do today is a blue/green with a brown center flower. It might be a double Dutch, I don't know yet. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the tilt method so that you can get it to actually look like a tilted flower, and hopefully it will work. I say that now, but sometimes it doesn't work as planned, but either way, we'll do it. So welcome back. I'm so glad to have everyone here with me. I have got a couple of things that are new. If you have been following along my page, my channel for a little while, you'll know that I just recently over the summer lost my mom in May and then my adopted father in August. So it was a really challenging summer for me, and I took some time. I was still painting. I've been doing some texture work. I've still been making my art because it is my therapy, but I haven't been really sharing a lot of it because it's not really, it's been kind of my private time and just working through all of the grieving. And I still am, but I'm smiling a lot more now. And I don't like to come on my channel when I'm not happy and smiling because I don't like to spread the, I like to spread the good stuff for you guys. So I have a new hairstyle and I have some new supplies. This little dish that I'm using now to store and carry my supplies that I use each time, this was my mom's, and I found it when we went through, my aunt and I went through the kitchen after my adopted father passed, and we found a whole bunch of really awesome things. And this dish, it's like, oh man, I could use that in my studio. So this is my mom's dish, and behind the camera, which you can't see, I have my mom's easel, and there was a piece on it that she was working on when she passed, and I don't know how long she was working on it, but I'm gonna be using it now. So I don't want to spend too much time in that because that'll make me sad. Okay, so I got my Boss Lady mug. I've got my paints, a selection of paints. I'm gonna share with you what they are. Come on in, grab a coffee or a tea or a beer or a tequila or a whiskey or whatever it is you drink, and don't fall asleep. Hopefully you won't fall asleep. Come on in, and I am going to go ahead and put my gloves on, and let's get started. And I want to share with you the colors that I'm using as well, because it's a really neat color palette. I've learned that I have to move my coffee off my work table, because a lot of times I stick things in my coffee, that like utensils and things that aren't supposed to be in there because I'm thinking it's water. So I'm just going to move that back there for now. And that's okay. All right, so before I put my gloves on and everything, like I said, my foundation layer is the PPG Multi-Pro. All of my colors are mixed with my Abstract Stylism Mix. The link to that video is down below if you want to see how I mix my colors. It's a full-length video. It's very in-depth. It shows you how to do it, why I do it, and everything. So that's a really good mixing video if that's something that you're looking for Abstract Stylism. And Bentley has wandered back in again. So the first color I'm using is Van Dyke Brown. This is one of my favorite browns. I love it. I'm also going to be using Turquoise Phthalo, another of my favorite blue-greens. turquoise phthalo, and all the phthalos. I love the phthalo blue, gorgeous. And then I'm going to be using a little bit of the cadmium yellow deep, and this is Liquitex Basics. All the other ones that I'm using are golden fluid acrylics. This one is ultramarine blue. It's a gorgeous bright blue. And then I have a manganese blue. I was thinking about putting a little bit of the Da Vinci indigo, but I wanted this one to be a little bit lighter and not as dark. So the manganese blue I'll be using, and then around the colors to circulate around, so the outer petals of the flower will be lighter. I'm going to put a little bit of the teal. And then of course my top layer, and you guys, if you've been following me long enough that you know, I do not call this cell activator because nothing is being activated. It's not anything like that. There's no chemical reaction. It's simply a different viscosity, a different weight of the pigments, and that's what causes the cells to form. It's called the Rayleigh-Taylor instability theory, and you can look it up. It's really cool. It's totally scientifical, and that's a word, I just made it up. But there's no Australian Floetrol in this, and it's the mix for this top layer. This is the top layer. It's also in that mixing video. So if you want to do what I do and have the outcome be the same that I get, you'll want to use the abstract cell as a mix, and then the top layer. It's just a different viscosity. It's a little thinner, and it causes the pigments to act differently. Some of them will sink and some of them will rise, hence the cell formation. So having said that, there are some of you who have commented and said it's called cell activator, and others have said stop saying that it's not called cell activator, and I'm just going to keep saying it because the reason why is because when I first got started 3 years ago in fluid art, I was very confused by that term. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm a knucklehead, I don't know, but I wanted to know what was being activated. I want to know if there was like a chemical reaction. There isn't. So the term cell activator really is very misleading, and it confused me. So I don't use that term at all. You'll never hear me say it. And I've taken it right out of my vocabulary. It is the base layer, the foundation layer, the color layer, and then the top layer. So it's 3 layers, and then the way you manipulate the paints with whatever pressure you use. I'm choosing to use a hairdryer. Some people use the mouth blowing method to just blow out the petals. Some people will layer it, put a whole top layer of the whole black top layer over the top, and then just spin it and let the weight and the centrifugal force cause the cells to form. That's also really cool. You can do that as well. But what I want to do is a very particular style. And if this ends up being a double Dutch bloom, it will have between 8 and 10 petals. We'll see. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But I mean, I never really know until I get started. It could come out totally ugly and disgusting, and you guys will be like, wow, I can't believe I just wasted all that time watching that terrible video. But hopefully you'll have some fun and you'll smile a little bit, and maybe you'll laugh. I don't know. I tend to be very silly, and I have a lot of movie quotes floating around in my head. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, I am Gen X. I am a proud Gen Xer. And typically the movie and song lyrics, movie quotes, I always have song running in my head. The movie quotes and song lyrics are typically from the 80s, sometimes the 90s. One of my favorite movies to quote is The Princess Bride. Inconceivable. I know, it's inconceivable, isn't it? Such a good movie. I heard, useless piece of movie trivia, I heard that they were actually considering remaking that movie, and I will actively campaign against that if they decide to do that, because I think it was perfect just the way that it was. And some of the actors who were in the original one are no longer with us. So it's perfect, and I don't think they could improve upon it. It is the perfect movie. So if they decide to make it again or remake it, I will be very disappointed and won't watch it because, I mean, come on, Andre the Giant, Billy Crystal as Miracle Max, he was perfect. Toublé, I'm telling you, useless movie quotes in my head, they're always there. You guys, if you can relate, or if you're Gen Xer, comment, let's be friends, give me a shout out. If you have like useless movie trivia in your head, drop it in a comment. I would love to hear it. I'm an 80s movie fan. I'm an 80s rock music fan. I just love everything about the 80s, with the exception of the blue eyeshadow, which is funny because I'm actually wearing blue eyeliner today. But I don't go the full blue eyeshadow like I did in the 80s. And my hair is kind of big, but it's not like in the 80s we had the satellite dish going on. You remember the satellite dish that was sprayed with Aquanet? Yeah, I don't do that anymore. But it's close. It's pretty big. Okay, so I'm just stretching out my foundation layer here because I don't want a real deep puddle in the center. but I do want to still be able to stretch this, so I don't want to stretch it all. And there's one little bubble. I do like, you guys, I do like to use the PPG Multi Pro for the base foundation layer most of the time because there's really no bubbles in it. And if you're not familiar with the style of painting, you may ask yourself, why don't you want bubbles in it? When the bubble pops in the white base layer, it pops through all the other layers, so you tend to have a white spot in your painting. If you want white spots, great, go for it. More power to you. But if you don't, then you want to make sure your base layer has no bubbles in it. And some of them, when you get them from the factory, they're really shaken up or they're stirred. They stir them a lot. And if you have them, if they get it to you in the store, tell them you do not want it stirred. I'm telling you. And you ladies, if you go to the Home Depot or if you go to Lowe's to get your paints, one of my pet peeves, I'm just venting here. You can fast forward this if you don't want to hear it. One of my pet peeves with those home improvement centers is because I'm a woman, they tend to think I don't know what I want. And I know exactly what I want. But when I go in there to get my paints, it's typically the Bare Premium that I am trying to get. And it's always on the top shelf and I can't reach it. So invariably, I have to go and ask, usually a man, could you please, and bat my eyes, would you please reach up there and get that for me because I can't reach it. And then almost without fail, they get it down for me and they say something like, you know, this needs to be tinted. And I say, yes, I know, I'll tint it myself. Well, no, we can tint it right here. Just take it right up to the front, we'll tint it. I said, no, I'll do that myself. I know what I want, thank you very much. And they'll say, but you can't use it like that. They continue to argue with me. And that's when I usually have to pull out the old, I'm an artist and this is my medium, so I think I know what I'm doing. And then they're like, oh, okay. And one time, you guys are not going to believe this, one time in one of those stores, I won't tell you which one, and I won't tell you what town it was in because I don't want to get this guy in trouble, a little older gentleman saw me reaching for one of the paints that was untinted, and he said, hey! And I turned around, I was like, what? And there was a man in the aisle next to me looking at something else. He said, hey! And then he pointed at me and said, you can't do that. Apparently, he doesn't know me. And I blinked a couple of times and I said, excuse me, I can't do what? You can't just get that and not have it tinted? Because I was leaving the aisle when I said, yes, I can. No, you can't. You can't do that. Then, of course, I had to explain to him that I'm an artist and this is my medium. What I wanted to say was, I can do any damn thing I want. But I didn't say that because I was trying to be nice. And then he looked a little baffled and then he walked away. But it always happens and I'm really frustrated by that because I know what I'm doing. I know what I want. I know why I'm in the store and I don't need help except, get it down off the shelf for me because you put my paint up too high and I can't reach it myself. Or put a step ladder there and I'll get it myself. It always happens. Always, without fail. The men seem to think, I don't know what I do. I don't know what I want. Granted, I don't know what I want most of the time. But when I go into Lowe's and Home Depot, I'm in there so much I know exactly what I want. And I think I've probably met every male employee in those stores. And I probably have had an encounter like that with every single one of them. Okay, so remember I said I was going to layer these colors, which I did. And now I'm going to put the teal around the outside edge. And hopefully it's going to have a really dramatic effect. But I don't know, you guys, because I was talking the whole time I was doing this and I wasn't really paying attention. So this might end up looking like butt. But you know what I say? If it looks like butt, at least it will be pretty butt. It will be blue and green and yellow butt. That doesn't actually sound pleasant. That doesn't sound pleasant. Okay. So this might be a little bit too much paint for this canvas. So what's going to probably happen is my petals are going to go off the edges. And that's okay, I think. So those are all my colors. And I will tell you again how I put them down, the order I put them down in. The first one was the Van Dyke Brown. Then there was the Turquoise Phthalo. Then I added a little bit of the Cadmium Yellow Deep. Then a little bit of the Ultramarine Blue. A little bit of the Manganese Blue. And then I surrounded it with the teal. And there's a couple of bubbles. So I'm just going to, hello. There we go. And then my top layer. And this is what hopefully is going to form some cells. You don't need very much. Because yes, this is the abstract cellism, but I don't want cells throughout the whole canvas. I just want very specific cells in a very specific place. Okay, now I'm going to blow out with my hairdryer. This is my little, I think the link for this is also down below. This is just a little travel hairdryer. I bought a bigger, what is this called? Diffuser. I bought a bigger diffuser and I just taped it on. I also have a piece of cardboard and some tape over the cold button to hold it down so I don't have to keep holding it because I always blow these out with cold. And I'm going to put it probably on low first. If that doesn't work, I might turn it up on high, but I have more control on low, so I apologize if it's noisy, but here's where the magic happens. Or not. Okay, so I think what I'd like to do is have 3 petals this way and 2 this way. So I'm going to start here. That's very nice. A lot of you have asked me, how have I mastered the blowout? And really, the 2 things, practice and take your time. It's not a race. I'm going to fix this one a little bit before I blow out another one. These 2 are a little bit short. There we go. There. Okay, so that's really nice. Now what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to extend these a tiny bit more, and then I think I'm going to do a second layer. Okay, so this is really looking good. Now, what I want to do, so here's where the tilt comes in. Before I do anything else, what I want to decide is which way I want the flower to look like it's tilted. And as I'm looking at it right now, it naturally looks like it's tilted this way. So, yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide the paint that way a little bit so it looks like, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's going to slide the petals a little bit so it looks like the flower is tilted, hopefully. And then when I spin it out, it will keep that tilted look again, hopefully. So we tilt it just enough like that. So now I'm going to turn it so you can see. Now see, it looks like the flower is facing this way. And then you always make sure the center of your flower is in the center of your canvas. That might mean you have to adjust your canvas a little bit because it's off center. My canvas is off center a little. Okay, so I think this is good. I am going to tweak it a teeny tiny bit, not very much at all. This is just a dotting tool. And sometimes I like to just define the petals a tiny bit. I don't do much with it because I don't want to mess it up. But you can look at it and see where it looks like there's a natural break where the petals might, the background might naturally show through. And then we could do something like one here. On the inner petals, you can define the inner petals a little more. And then this is where you can kind of point them in the direction that it's tilted. You'll see when it's probably not making sense right now, but you'll see once I start spinning it and it starts stretching, you'll see what I mean, hopefully. This, and just making just tiny changes, just little changes, because the composition is really small right now. You don't need to make big changes right now. It's one of the things I think I kind of learned the hard way. I would try to make all the changes and the big changes before I started spinning, and then the big changes became huge changes. I think what I was doing is I was trying to make it look like the final thing before I spun it. And you don't want to do that. You kind of have to try and think ahead and picture what it's going to look like after you spin it. I love this color combination. And because I put a little bit of that yellow in, I'm getting a tiny bit of green, and that's just lovely. The other thing I will say too is if you do this style and you use these paints, this, like I said, is very stretchy. The white base layer is very stretchy. So when you pull in, you'll see it kind of makes a string. Go really slowly and make sure that string breaks before you pick up your tool, because otherwise you'll have a big white line across your canvas. Ask me how I know. Okay, now the only other thing I want to do before I spin this out and stretch the composition is I want to cover the canvas with the paint, because if you try and stretch a composition onto the dry part of the canvas, it will stop, and then it will distort the composition of the flower, and I don't want that to happen. I want to continue to spin and stretch. So in order to do that, you have to have the full canvas has to be covered with paint. So I don't know if you guys can see that now. Can you see how it's looks like it's tilted this way? I discovered this quite by accident. I would love to be like, oh, I studied flowers and how they, no. I actually spun my canvas almost off my table. And so it tilted accidentally. My flower tilted accidentally. And when I put it back on my spinner, I was blown away by how gorgeous it looked. I actually gave that one away. I don't have that one anymore. That was one of my first ones. And I didn't videotape it. I was so glad because I spun it off my table. It went flying. And here I'm like, don't spin it too hard. That's how come everybody asks me, how do you keep your canvas on your spinner without, tacking it down? I'm like, oh, I don't spin it very hard. And then I went and spun this stupid thing. But because I did that, I discovered this really cool technique. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to move this slightly that way, because I want those to stretch a little bit more first here. All right, here we go. Again, you do not need to spin very quickly, you guys. This is where patience and taking your time is really, really important. Okay, so that one's getting really long. That's very cool. But I don't want it to get too long, so I'm going to scoot it this way a little bit, because these two aren't really stretching and these three are. But this is the top of the flower. So that's where I need stretching. Okay, and before you spin, every time, you guys, spin slowly and make sure it's not going to hit anything. Ask me how I know. And then slowly. You don't have to overspin it. More revolutions is better than fast revolutions. Just always remember that. You can do more revolutions. They don't have to be fast. And then I'm going to go this way. This is where the patience comes in. Don't rush it. You have to have patience. Ooh. Ooh. That's very pretty. Okay, so now I'm scooting it this way a little bit so we can get some of this Make sure it's not going to hit anything. Oh, you guys, I'm loving this color combination. I don't think I've used these particular blues together in one flower before, and I really like it. And because I did not use a lot of that top layer, I don't have a ton of cells, but they're very specifically placed, which is exactly where I wanted them, which is typically in the center and then along the edge of the petals. Okay. I do want to swing this way a little more. Make sure it's not going to hit anything. Okay, now we go this way. At the top layer, when I use black, I always use Amsterdam's Carbon Black. I think. Hold on, maybe I'm lying. Hold on, it might not be Carbon Black. I'm sorry, it's Oxide Black. My mistake. I always use Amsterdam Oxide Black when I do the top layer. It's the perfect consistency, and the cells form just beautifully. Okay. I want to spin that way a little bit, so I'm taking it off center. Also, guys, this is my 24-inch spinner that I made. The link to make this spinner also is down below in the description if you would like a 24-inch round spinner and you're unable to find one. I only made this one because I wasn't able to find one when I first started, and I had a 12-inch, which I was using for my small canvases, and then I started to do larger canvases and I couldn't find a bigger spinner. So I made this one, and it's pretty easy. And that link for that one is also down below in the description if you want to make that. Okay, now the only thing I think I'm going to do, I do have to check the thickness in the center of the canvas. And I want to torch it, just because if there are any bubbles in there, they will form cells in that center. I'm not torching the outside edges. I can look at it from the side and I can see there are no bubbles. No bubbles at all, so I don't need to worry about that. And I don't want a ton of cells out here. I like the big stretched ones. I think that looks phenomenal. Phenomenal. Oh, some of you guys have commented that because I'm learning Italian, because I'm going to Italy in the fall, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, I am planning to go to Italy because I want to go to the Uffizi Gallaries and see all the beautiful artwork there. There are a couple of pieces that I'm dying to see, and because I personally feel, and you guys don't have to agree with me on this, this is just my personal feeling, that if I go to a foreign country, for me, it's arrogant for me to assume that they're going to speak my language. So I want to be able to go to Italy and speak their language because I feel like that's more respectful of them and their culture. Plus, you guys, Italian is a beautiful language. Oh my word, it's so romantical. I am gloriously in love with the language and the countryside. I've been Googling and watching videos, and I'm going to Florence. There may be other places that I'll go. It is a little bit harder, I will tell you, to learn a foreign language when you're 55. I learned Spanish when I was in high school. Hablo español un poco. And Italian, I'm finding, is just close enough to Spanish so that I'm confusing myself. So I'm saying the Spanish version of the word, and some of them are very similar. Some of them are exactly the same. But see, today I was learning some colors. In Spanish, it's roja is red, and in Italian, it's rosa. So it's roja and rosa. I'm also learning how to roll my R's, and I'm totally embarrassed at the moment because I still can't. And I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna learn how to roll my R's. I've watched videos. I practice every day. It may take me a little while, but I'm gonna learn how to roll my R's, you guys. And I'm telling you, it's gonna be epic. My Spanish teacher used to get on my case, something awful. she'd sit there in front of me in class and roll her R's. She'd say all the R words, all the double R words, and I would get embarrassed because it was in front of class, and she'd say, repeat after me, and I'd repeat it, and I couldn't make the R roll sound, and she got so mad at me. You're not trying hard enough. I won't tell you her name because she might still be teaching, I don't know. But I did have an opportunity to go to Madrid in high school, and my parents wouldn't let me go. So that kind of sucks. But I will be going to Italy. I do have, if you guys are interested, you don't have to, but I am going to throw it out there. I did start a GoFundMe to send little Kay to Big Italy. The link is also in the description. I'd be totally blessed. A few of you have already donated whatever you want. If you want, that would be lovely. I would so appreciate that. To help me, it's been a dream of mine for a very long time. And I have recently become reacquainted with Italian literature. And that's another reason why I want to learn Italian, because I would really like to read Dante's Divina Commedia in Italian. Dante's Inferno. I would really love to read the original and understand it. So that's another reason. But the art, the paintings, the sculpture, the buildings, the land, the people. I love everything about Italy. The food, the people, the culture, the land, the language, the music. I love it all. Anyway, so if you'd like to donate, I would be absolutely blessed if you wanted to do that. That would be wonderful. Okay, I believe this is nearly done. I think what I need to do now is test the center for depth. And if it's still a little thick, I'm going to spin it a little more. Oh, there's a hair on there. I'm going to spin it a tiny bit more. This is the boring part, but for you guys, it might be boring. But for me, this is like the really cool part, because this is where I take it from blobs of paint to something really beautiful, I think. So I'm going to spin it a tiny, tiny bit more. There's a little bit of paint that hasn't gone off some of the edges. So I'm going to spin that just a little bit more. I'm also trying to see if I can stretch that one petal a tiny bit more. It's just a little bit off. It's throwing off the composition, I think, that one petal. And I don't want to touch it with a hairdryer because that will mess it up. A little more stretching. Okay, I'm going to do one more and then I think that's it. Spin one more time around, then I think that's got it. Okay, that's better. See how that one petal has stretched more? Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, that definitely... Perfetto. Well, art isn't perfect, but I just like saying perfetto in Italian. I only know a few words, you guys. Help me practice. Does anybody out there want to learn Italian with me? We can be practice buddies. That'd be so fun. I have a couple of my friends a couple of people that I know who are going to Italy next year. When I've told them that I'm going, they're like, oh, I'm going too. I'm like, oh my gosh, we can learn Italian together. They're going to use translating apps, and they're not learning, so I don't have anybody to learn with. Which is fine. I mean, I can learn it on my own, but it's always more fun with a buddy. So if anybody out there wants to help me or wants to learn Italian with me, that would be so fun. Drop a comment. I'm loving this, you guys. I don't know how you feel about it, and hopefully you can see where I tilted the canvas. I am going to blow this corner out though, because there's a little bit too much paint on it. Hold on. that will flatten out as it dries. So I hope that you can see where I tilted. So this was the bottom of the canvas and I tilted it. Remember, I tilted it this way. So it looks like the flower, the center of the flower is pointing this way. Hopefully you guys can see that. I think, let me look. I think I accomplished it. I don't know. Maybe it's off center and it's kind of wonky, but I like it. I think it's beautiful. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry and then I'm going to apply some texture to the edge of the petals. I think that would be really beautiful. Okay, so there you go. There's my blue and yellow and brown and green multicolored bloom. I love it. What do you guys think? Thank you for joining me today, tonight, this morning, whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. I appreciate you so much for joining me. I hope you had fun. And I am very glad to be back with you all. So a reminder, links are down below. Also, the full-length videos will post every Sunday. And in between there, I will post shorts. Also, if you guys did not know, I am also on TikTok. And the videos I post there are different. And obviously they're short because they're TikToks, but there's more variety of different kinds of videos, and some of them are creation videos that are real short and PC. So if you like the shorter ones, I'm on TikTok. You can find me over there, and I'll put the link to that also below or in my bio, wherever. If you want to follow me on TikTok, that would be great. I can't believe I've got almost 1,000 followers over there. What the heck's going on? I don't know. I'm having so much fun. Thank you guys so much. You are so sweet, and you've been extremely respectful, and I just have to say grazie. Thank you so much for all of the love and support and the kind words and the emails. Oh, I'm getting emails. Where are you? We miss you. You're so sweet. Grazie mille. I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much. And stay tuned. More videos to come. More beautiful paintings. I'm doing texture work now, and you can see actually more of those, the texture stuff, on my TikTok page if you want to go over there. But thank you so much for all the support. I really am enjoying all of your comments and your wonderful suggestions and all of your questions. I try to answer all of them. Thank you so much for being here with me. Once again, this is Little K, back at my studio, my little corner of the art world at Little K Artistry, and I am saying grazie. Buonasera, which is good evening, because it's evening right now. And thank you so much for being here as I created this beautiful blue flower, and I hope you love it. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to say once again, go make the art. You'll be glad you did.